So, quick build video that I'm going to do to show how I'm going to convert this into a little kebab shack. Now, this isn't an original idea. This has been blatantly ripped off of the very talented Jonathan Hartman, who is Shibboleth02 on Instagram. And the basic concept is I'm going to cut out this front section. I'm then going to scratch build a little sort of grill section and put a floor in and a few bits of details on the back, and then paint it up. Pretty much as simple as that. It's a flavour piece. I'm primarily going to be using a razor saw for cutting. I haven't glued any of these walls and corner pieces together. I've just masking taped them. That means that it's really easy. Take the masking tape off and cut. I'd certainly recommend that anybody does that because it just makes life that little bit easier. So I'm going to start cutting, and I will come back at little intervals and just show you how I've got on. Got these bits cut quite nicely. This one has got quite a chunk left on the frame, but I'd rather it that way round than cutting out of the frame itself, which I've managed to avoid, thankfully. If you're going to do this yourself, what you need to do is to make sure you're holding it. You either need a proper clamp or a vice, or you need to hold it by with your hand. You want to hold onto the biggest section. If you want to do this one, which is quite obviously the wrong way round, you can't hold it like that, and that's not enough. Flip it over, mark on the back side. You've got some fairly decent guides already, and cut that direction. And what you'll find is you'll probably get a much better cut on than I managed to do. Next step is to tidy it up. I'll be using a normal scalpel just to sort out any clumpy bits and cut that lump off. I'll be using a flat file just to sand that down so that's nice and smooth. And then what I tend to also do is to use a mould line remover just to scrape down to get rid of any file marks. That's all tidied up, and what I've just done is I've masking taped everything together. What I'm going to do next is just to lop this little corner piece off. So I've marked it with a permanent marker, and all I'll do is just using the edge of this, just cut straight down using the razor saw. I'll then tidy it up in the same way as I've done these, so just using sort of the knife and file and whatnot. Corners sliced off and tidied up, so the next job is to actually get some glue on. Now what I've done is I've removed the masking tape that was joining all these corners around. So basically what you need to do on each piece, you need to apply the glue in this section and down the edge. So quite nice and simple. And you want a decent amount down the edge. So, and then what you're looking to do is just to poke those together. Now you will have some glue pushed through, and you will have a little bit of glue pushed through on this side. That's fine because we will sand that off. Now what I do want is down here, I want to make sure there's enough glue. This is what I class as over gluing. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue down there. Don't want it seeping everywhere. I'm going to put a little bit down there and here. And what we'll do, when this is dried, it will be solid as plastic. So I'm going to use this as just a template to make sure I keep it square. I'm not going to actually glue it in onto this yet. I'll do that as a separate piece. So I'll finish gluing this up, and then we'll come back when this is all dried. Glue's been given a good 18 hours to dry. When you overglue like this, what I find is you do need to let it properly set through. If you run your finger along, it's nice and hard rather than fairly soft if it hadn't quite cured. What we now need to do is to tidy up these glue lines. As you can see, there's quite a bit over the edge. And all you have to do is this is a fairly soft file in comparison to some, but all you have to do is to gently sand flat. Now, it doesn't make any difference if we slightly scuff on the walls, because it's a Necromunda scenery piece. And then just gently go on the flat the other way. Now, you could use your mould line remover then just to tidy up. Like that. or you could, if you want to, just use a scalpel. Probably round the rivets you would want to use a scalpel because it's a little bit more accurate. What you need to do is you need to go round and do all the items where you've overglued. Don't forget to do under here and round there. And once that's done, we can actually start to glue extra bits on and go from there. Most of the gaps have now tidied up quite nicely, but we do have some, such as here, where we've actually got a little bit of gap where either I could have overglued a bit more or the plastic has shifted, so there was a bit of a height difference between the two layers. Some of them are worse than others. However, this one we know that we're going to see when you actually look at the frontage. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply some filler into here. Now, there's a few different fillers that you could use for doing this. Because this is a terrain piece, I'm not too bothered about getting it 100% perfect. So what I tend to use is Revel Plastone. This is a modelling putty. You can make your own modelling putty like this by just mixing plastic glue with some plastic shavings. This actually contains, if ever you smell it, it's got the same aroma as plastic glue, so it basically will melt the plastic. So the way you need to apply it, you can't use any plastic tools. So I just tend to put a blob onto a slotter base, clean on a rag, and then this is just an old bit of snap-off blade that I've got. So all I do is I just grab some onto there, and then just dollop it into there. Now don't go over the top, but make sure that you actually fill it. Now this will dry very quickly, but once you've done this, what you need to do is you need to probably give it an hour so you know it's properly set. And then what you'll do is the same as we did earlier, and go in, just tidy it up with a knife, because there'll be a few crunchy bits, and then just file it down, and then just scrape it along with the mould line remover or knife just to tidy it up. You don't have to do all of them. These ones, for example, you probably won't see because it'll be around the back of the train piece, but it's up to you. Really happy with how this has filled. I did end up doing these as well. They're probably not as good a fill as this one, which is the important one though. Next step is to make a base. What we want is an artificial floor to this so that we can actually glue bits on, and it just makes it a little bit neater. So all I've done is I've put this onto a corner of a plastic card sheet, use the base, add a fine permanent marker, and just cut out a very crude bottom. Now this slides in quite comfortably. Now it would be quite natural to glue this completely flush on the bottom. However, if we do this, what will actually happen is as soon as you put it onto a Zone Mortalis tile, it won't sit properly. So what I've done is I've grabbed one of these pieces, which is the same as the top, because this fits onto it like this. So what we need to do, this raises, these lugs here will raise the base up because they fit into the frame. So if I put this here, you'll see it's no longer in line with the bottom. So what I will do is I'm going to put some blue tack just to hold this floor in place at the right height. Now you have to be a bit careful because you haven't got the support under these middle pieces that you have at the front and back. If I do this, it's quite awkward one-handed. But now when I remove the base piece, that's now fixed in place, which means I can put beads of glue all the way along and perhaps some extra little bits in there. Done a little bit of modification to the base plate that we glued in. And firstly, what I've done is I've used some super thin eye bar just to put a small rim all the way round. Now that does two things. Firstly, it's going to strengthen that and stop it flapping in the same way. But also when you put it on here, the gap you get is negligible. It doesn't look quite as weird. So when you put it onto a base, that will be hardly visible at all because it will be black. The other thing that I've actually done is I've put a little bit of tread plate on here because it just adds to that little bit of flavour. So the next step is actually probably the most fun. What you need to do is you need to start getting bits and bobs that you want to kind of fill the back. We'll probably want to cover some of these. So you might want some of the computer bits that come from the box, some pipes. You know, scour through your bits box, find all sorts of fun things that you think you can get in there. What I'll do to fit them is I will actually take the top off and I'm going to crudely blue tack them in place so that we've got an idea on where they're going to go, and then I'll glue them with plastic glue or super glue depending. So here's everything blue tacked in place. I've used a couple of barrels for my fire pit. I've got a little stove made out of sort of pipe ends, and this is one of like the boiler things off the normal sprue. What I have done is I've cut the tap off the side, and what I will do is I'll reposition it here, but if I glue it now I'll probably break it. So next step is to basically go through, let the super glue that's gluing all these stones dry, and then I'll go through and I'll glue each piece in place and trim it to size so that it fits properly. And here's everything trimmed and glued into place. I've left the top off so that it comes off like that, and I've got the pipes on. This just makes the whole thing a lot easier to paint when I get around to it. Now the little stove you can see is a little bit different to how I originally intended it. I glued this on a lot lower than I was planning to, this little screen. And I was going to put this on originally as like grill. However, I think it actually looks a lot better. And what I've done is I've cut a barrel, sliced a piece off and cut it at an angle as like a little extraction cover. And with this thing, again, it's magnetised, it actually looks like it's a proper extractor. I've put the tap on here. This is separate at the moment. So I've just used a couple of bits of sprue for its feet. And then what I'll do is I'll paint this separate and just glue it into place once I've done. What I have also done is I've used blobs of Typhus Corrosion, so that looks like a dripping tap, for example, and then just around here where I get dirt and grime gather. And then I've also used Martian iron earth for some cracked patches, just to add a little bit of texture, and it's not meant to be clean after all. On top of here, what I'd probably plan to do is to put a piece of wire mesh, and then I've got, for example, some meat. This is like a set of ribs that come from the Ogre range from Age of Sigmar. And then I've got a cleaver that I can put on as well. So, but these will be flavour pieces. The talus I've glued in here is model railway scatter. Basically, you're meant to put it between railway sleepers. But I've just super glued all this in, as you can see from this awful amount of super glue misting. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed just seeing how I've gone about creating this little flavour piece, and hopefully it's inspired you to do some of your own. The Zone Mortalis tiles and bits are so good to do this type of exciting thing for your own boards. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments below or receive feedback on how I can improve future videos. As always, a subscribe and a like are appreciated, and feel free to look me up on Twitter or Instagram. Stay safe.